The Vessel of a Hero by Akutagawa Ryunosuke. Any way you look at it, that man Xiang Yu just didn't have the vessel of a hero. Matong, a general of Han, said this while stroking his sparse beard, stretching his already long face even longer. Around him, a dozen or so faces floated red against the dark night of the military encampment, illuminated by a single oil lamp placed in their center. All of those faces wore unusual, lingering smiles, likely because the joy of today's victorious battle, the day they finally took the head of the Hegemon-King of Western Chu, had not yet faded. Is that so? One face, with a high nose and sharp, piercing eyes, spoke. A slightly cynical smile played on his lips as he stared intently at the space between Matong's eyebrows. Matong, for some reason, seemed slightly flustered. Well, he was strong, there is no denying that. They say he could even bend the heavy stone tripods at the temple of King Yu on Mount Tu. Even in today's battle, for a moment I was certain my life was forfeit. Li Zuo was killed, Wang Heng was killed. His ferocity was simply beyond words. Yes, he was undeniably strong. I see. The other man nodded magnanimously, still wearing that same smile. Outside the tent it was dead silent, save for the sound of a horn blowing 2 or 3 times in the far distance. Not even the whinny of a horse could be heard. Amidst the silence there drifted a faint scent of withered autumn leaves. However, Matong looked around at the faces of the others, blinking once to emphasize his point. However, he lacked the vessel of a hero. The proof of that lies in today's battle. When the Chu army was cornered at the Wu River, they had only 28 riders left, fighting against our massive army, which swarmed like clouds and mist, was completely pointless. What's more, I heard the village head of Wu Jiang went out of his way to meet him, offering to ferry him across the river to Jiangdong. If Xiang Yu truly had the vessel of a hero, he would have swallowed his pride, crossed the river, and planned his return with renewed strength. It was no time to be worrying about saving face. So, by your definition, having the vessel of a hero means being good at calculating the odds? A quiet wave of laughter arose from the group at these words, but Matong was surprisingly undeterred. Releasing his beard, he leaned back slightly and began to speak with vigorous hand gestures, occasionally glancing at the sharp-eyed, high-nosed face. No, that is not what I mean. Xiang Yu, before today's battle began, he stood before his 28 men and supposedly said, "It is heaven that destroys me, not any lack of martial skill. To prove it, even with this small force, I will break the Han army 3 times. And indeed, he fought and won not just 3, but 9 times. But if you ask me, that is sheer cowardice, blaming his own failures on heaven. Heaven itself must be annoyed. It would be a different story if he had crossed the Wu River, rallied the brave men of Jiangdong, and fought once again for supremacy over the Central Plains. But he didn't. He chose to die when he could have perfectly well lived. The reason I say Xiang Yu wasn't a hero isn't just because he was bad at calculating the odds. It's because he tried to use the will of heaven as an excuse for everything. That is no good. I do not believe a true hero acts like that, though I don't know what a scholar like Chancellor Shao might say." Lu Matong paused for a moment, looking to his left and right with a triumphant air. His argument must have seemed quite reasonable. The others silently exchanged light nods, seemingly satisfied. Then, among them, only the high-nosed face unexpectedly revealed a kind of deep emotion in his eyes. His dark pupils began to shine, as if holding a feverish heat. "Is that so? Xiang Yu really said such a thing?" "So they say." Lu Matong nodded his long face deeply up and down. "Isn't it weak? Or at the very least, unmanly? I always thought a hero was someone who fights against heaven. Indeed, I thought a hero was someone who fights on, even knowing it is heaven's will." "Indeed. Then Xiang Yu is—" Liu Bang raised his sharp eyes and stared intently at the flickering flame of the autumn lamp. Then, speaking slowly, almost as if to himself, he answered, "That is exactly why he had the vessel of a hero."